The Juke with Dr. Jen Welter. I am Mitch Milani. That is, of course, Dr. Jen Welter. And we are here to discuss the NFL. The NFL schedule for 2021 has dropped, kind of, sort of. At least there's been leaks. So we're going to talk about what we can talk about. Week 1 has arrived. They've already put up some of the spreads for week 1, which I'm pumped about. The opening game will be the Dallas Cowboys versus Tom Brady and the Super Bowl champs on a Thursday night. So that's exciting. Jen, what's going on? How excited are you that the schedule has arrived?
You know, I'm really happy to know what we're going to look forward to, but I don't know how I feel about Dak being attacked by the TBD on his first day back. I mean, you know, I know we've made some moves to get it better, but like that could be one and done for Dak. Like he's back and he's back on his back, right? Like that is not necessarily the soft landing that I would have liked him to kind of warm up to. Maybe, you know, maybe, I don't know, that bodes well. And can the Alice Cowboys actually earn that D back with that first game of the NFL season? I mean, like, you're going to know a lot. And you know what's funny? Everybody's still going to talk about it because it's still America's team and people like to talk about the Cowboys. So even if they get destroyed by the reigning Super Bowl champ Tampa Bay Buccaneers, TB12, all the guys back on the roster, oh yeah, and TBD, which you know, as a defensive girl, that's my heart. People still going to talk about the Cowboys, and Cowboys fans will still think that they're ready for the Super Bowl. That much.
Yeah, I actually tweeted or replied to my guys at Catch the Blitz. I was like, doesn't matter who they play week 1. Tampa, it's going to be a massacre. Okay,
Tampa.
It's going to be a massacre. It's going to be bad. So
Tampa.
Dallas, I feel bad for you because, I mean, like you said, it's Dak's first game after an injury. At least he'll have Tyron Smith and his tackles back in the lineup. That's at least nice because they weren't really suiting up last year because their offensive line was a disaster and they had Andy Dalton behind that offensive line. It will be a huge test for a lot of the young players on that Dallas defense for sure. But the scary part about Tampa is, like you said, their chemistry will be intact. They'll have a full offseason to work on it. And the continuity of their roster last year is just back intact for this year. So it's going to be like crazy fireworks from Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. And that stadium is going to be just bonkers too. So that game, I know that the Cowboys may not be able to stick with the champs, but it's going to be exciting nonetheless.
You know, it's going to be exciting, of course, because I am ready to have Dak back. I'm actually ready for the Cowboys to be a contender because it makes football more fun. Whether you are like the delusional level of some of their fans, which means that like they still thought they had a shot, right? Like to the end of the season, they were holding that rope of opportunity of like, bring me up, Dallas Cowboys. I still feel like we've got them. Like they still are rabid, and I am here for it. I think it's hilarious. I know I have friends of mine. I mean, I lived in Dallas for 15 years, so I've been around it, heard it, and it makes it more fun when the Cowboys are contenders because they, you know, it's a fun team. Whether you love them or hate them, it's always going to be something that gets, you know, everything's bigger in Texas. So they're going to have bigger egos too. So I can't wait to have them back. But I also do not give them one. I mean, Vegas has to be like, meh, about this one because it's not like there's a lot on the line except for the delusion of Dallas Cowboys fans.
Yeah, I think the spread opened already at 6.5. So the Bucks are favored by nearly, you know, a touchdown plus.
That's it.
That will probably go up, to be honest, because people, the public, they're going to want to bet on Tom Brady. So that's the opener, and it's one of the, obviously, the GOAT versus America's team. So that's exciting. But when we look at Sunday, September the 12th is the opening day for many of the teams in the NFL. We have some pretty interesting games. We have Matthew Stafford in his first game as a Ram on Sunday Night Football, taking on a former rival in the Chicago Bears. So maybe they want to start off hot, get some traction, get some excitement around Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and that combination with the Rams. We have the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots, Brian Flores versus Bill Belichick, and the two very improved teams and two of the best defenses in the game. So that will be fun. We have.
Hold on. Do you
Go ahead.
think Tua can do well against Belichick and
I don't
his
think
defense?
so.
Again, okay. I'm from Florida. I like Flores. I would like to see it. I'm not all in on Tua though. And Tua versus Bill Belichick defense after a season that, we all know he's been dollar bill now. He's been spending money, and he is an evil genius who is coming back for his comeback, right? He missed the playoffs last year. Belichick is in his lab. And I think Tua is going to be as uncomfortable on his first game as Dak is.
Ooh. Yeah, and I can't say that Miami has the same level of offensive line as Dallas does. So
that's right.
And it's going to be interesting. I think both coaches are going to try to outduel each other on the defensive side of the football, because I think Miami's defense is pretty good. And we actually had this matchup last year in week 1. New England ended up winning it. A lot of that was due to the fact that Miami had no idea what they were going to see from Cam Newton and that new offense. This year, it's going to be a little similar because Cam has new weapons, including the 2 tight end set, which I think is going to totally throw off Miami. Like, I don't know how they're going to defend that week 1 or even prepare to defend that week 1. Maybe Flores will have some inside information because he's been in that building before in terms of like what they might try to do to them. But that's going to be a really fun matchup because I think a lot of people look at both teams as very much improved and very much in that AFC East conversation. Speaking of the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a pretty high profile matchup. You have one of the best defenses and you have one of the best quarterbacks and best offenses going at it. So that's going to be fun. Any thoughts on that matchup? Steelers Bills?
I think the Bills have been building, right? Like the Bills have been building and they're steady, really pretty solid. And they're going to be building on that too. The Steelers have a lot to prove coming into this season with how they started versus how they finished. Obviously we talked about Najee. I think that's a huge upgrade because now, we didn't have a running game last year, right? Like, did they forget that that's a part of football? Because yeah, they did. But now we have him and that'll be better. But this is going to tell us a lot about what they're going to look like and what the team's identity is. I think it's Ben Roethlisberger's last ride. Like it's his last hurrah. So they really have to get it done. And you can't start how Steelers did last year and not feel bitter by how it ended. So they got a lot to prove.
Yeah, I totally agree. I look at the Steelers as a prime candidate, and I know you don't like to hear this because you know some of the coaches over there, but I look at them as a prime candidate to regress this season and decline a little bit just because they did lose a couple pieces on defense. Their defense was very strong last year, carried much of their success last year. And I'm just not certain about the offense and Big Ben and if he can keep up the level of play he's had over the course of his career. And the run game's a question, as you stated. And the Bills are, a really tough team to take on week 1 with that offense. And they really, another team like Tampa, who brought back a lot of the same players, like they were able to bring back everybody. So they're going to be a team that's ready to go week 1 because they have that continuity. One really interesting game to me is the Chargers and the Washington football team. I think those are two teams that are very different, but I think a lot of NFL fans are looking at them as major improving teams in terms of, Fitzpatrick at quarterback for Washington. The defense is loaded and you added Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. The Chargers with the whole new offensive line, new coaching staff, Derwin James back could be awesome. So that's a really fun game. I think maybe an underrated game. Do you look at any of these games here that you're like, ooh, that's an underrated one that I'm going to be watching?
Well, I do agree that that's going to be a good game. I think one of the interesting ones is where will Aaron Rodgers be?
Yeah.
right? Because there's two matchups. He could be like
themselves.
Right. They covered themselves, right? Like either way, whether he's in Denver or in Green Bay, he'll be in that same time slot. So I can't help but look at that and be like, they don't know anything more than we do. But they know that they've got to have him. Basically, it's like Fox was like, listen, okay, I'm going to need some Rodgers. And I don't care where he is, unless he's on Jeopardy, because then he's not going to be on our channel at that time. So I thought that was one of the most interesting parts of this schedule release. I do think the Monday night matchup was kind of like, meh. Like, this is what's left. Because the Raiders, to me,
that's pretty often that happens, though. I know that Monday Night Football used to be, especially when it was first or originated and into the 90s and stuff, like it was a big deal. It was the primetime slot. Nowadays, it's kind of like they get the third game sometimes out of the primetime slots.
Right. Like I looked at that one and I was like, well, were they just hoping people would only watch that game because there was nothing else on? Right. It was like, wah, wah.
They're going to watch it regardless. It's week 1, Monday Night Football, Lamar Jackson. I mean, they're going to watch it.
Right. Like, I'm going to watch it because of Lamar Jackson, but I'm not worried about the Raiders in any way, shape, or form. Like, I think Chucky, maybe, I don't know if he's tired. I don't know if the TV show contract ran out and they thought it was going to work like scripted television, like we're supposed to do this. Right. Because, his GM was from TV. He was from TV and it sounded really good. But I don't really feel like we've seen it. So I think maybe they're like, we love you, Lamar, and you finally have receivers. So let's see you put up some points and meh.
Yeah, they do have the NFL has a lot of their marquee teams in big games. I mean, the Bucs on Thursday, you have the Ravens on Monday, you have Stafford and McVay on Sunday, you have the Browns and the Chiefs. I mean, that's a stellar game. Those are two teams. I mean, the Chiefs are the team in the AFC and the Browns improved their defense immensely and we're already a playoff team. So that could be a preview of the AFC Championship, some people are thinking.
It really could. And I think that's going to be a fun one to see. I'm glad that Mahomes will have, his O-line back or, improved. And we will actually get to see him work some magic, right? It was so disappointing to not get to see like the real Mahomes magic offense, high flying speed in the Super Bowl. It was kind of like,
right.
Unless
you were cheering for Tampa. Like me, but
I wanted that game though.
I thought it would still be a game though. That's the weird thing about it. But
if that Tyrann Mathieu interception is actually like a thing, that game changes significantly.
Possibly,
it absolutely does. Momentum is so big, and he is a player. Personally, knowing him. You get him on fire, your whole team catches fire, right? Like he is a catalyst, but you could see he was pulled out of that game and
he got frustrated.
Yeah, he was frustrated and that's going to hurt the entire thing, right? Like he is just that guy, but if he's getting it and he's on, woo, Brady, you better watch out.
Yeah, I look at the Browns, they're in a tough spot. I mean, week 1, not because they're not great or talented, but they have so many new pieces on defense to step up to that challenge to defend Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's just going to be, you have so much to communicate, especially Andy Reid is like notorious for amazing week 1 game plans and plays you've never seen before. Like I remember one week, I think it was 2017, and they went to New England after New England won the Super Bowl. And they destroyed New England, like with Alex Smith. That was before Mahomes was there because Andy Reid was just drawing up things. Like, I was like, what is going on? And New England couldn't defend them at all. So, yeah, that's just tough in a week 1. But Odell Beckham will be back. So that's also exciting on that side of the football. I like the Colts-Seahawks matchup. I really like that matchup, actually. And you have Carson Wentz now in Indianapolis. And of course, Russell Wilson with the buzz of this offseason. Week 1, they're going to have to start strong, I think, to gain some momentum. And maybe, the Colts were a playoff team last year. So I could see that being a pretty competitive game.
That game bores me.
It does.
It bores me. I'm still mad at the Seahawks. I don't feel like they did enough to like, to really get better, right? Like I still don't see that you solved my D-line question. I'm still going to be looking at freaking Jamal Adams to lead the team in sacks, right? Like I don't think that you have any dogs. And when you don't have dogs as a defensive coach, I am not convinced, right? Like I want Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom. That's what I want from them. That's what makes me like them. That's what I cheer for. And it's kind of more like the Legion of meh.
Right? Do you have a defense? I'm curious. Do you have a defense like in week 1 here that stands out to you that you could see like really improve or maybe have a statement game in week 1? I know you said New England versus Tua.
Yeah, New England, I can't wait to see what just destruction they come out with, right? Like Bill Belichick spent money and he's mad. Like this is evil Bill hair on fire. Like his sweatshirts might even get shorter, right? Like I think he's going to come out in like a tank top because he flexed the sleeves like right dropped off and he's like, me angry, right? Like, so I can't wait to see what happens there. I want to see the Washington football team play more defense. I am high on them. Obviously, I always love TBD. Like, they are so good and they have so many pieces. But the one I want to see transformed, I gotta see what my Cardinals are doing.
I was gonna say the Cardinals.
I've got to see. I'm gonna get
emotional here.
I'm gonna get emotional. Live. It's gonna happen.
JJ
Watt, Chan Jones, Marcus Golden, Buda Baker. Come on now, defense. You just go sack the quarterback. That is like a oh. If I'm a quarterback, I'm having bad dreams, right? Because some people might say, oh, well, JJ Watt isn't the guy he was. Are you going to tell your quarterback that? Because how are you going to handle all of those dogs? Because what are you going to leave Chandler with one guy to handle?
I will say, like JJ Watt last year, sure, maybe he lost a step, but he was still being asked to be the number one without a doubt, like double team this guy every play. Now with Chandler Jones, like you have to double team Chandler Jones.
Yep, you have to. And if you don't, then JJ is going to do some, again, I always say the shiny penny, right? So let's look at shiny penny. One of those guys is double teamed. Has to be, at least. So then you have Chandler Jones. Okay, let's say we double team JJ. Then you got Chandler and you got Marcus Golden. Let's not forget the dog that he is, because though some of you may not know, now you're going to know. He has a motor and a fire in him that is ridiculous. He is that guy. So you are going to have different devastation. Okay, now we got a single Marcus. Like you have to. So his sack count is going to be up. But even when you're trying to double, you throw some of those other guys in there, like you don't have problems. You have a lot of problems.
You have Zaven Collins now, first round linebacker, who's like a 6'5" like truck, who's just going to be coming down on like blitzes. And you have Jordan Phillips, who I think had around a 10 sack season from Buffalo a couple of years ago. So he's in the mix there on the interior defensive line. So their front seven could really take over games. I know a lot of people have questions about their secondary. They brought in Malcolm Butler, but I think that front could just really destroy some teams. Tennessee is a good team, though. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. They lost some pieces offensively. We don't really know what to expect from the new offense without Arthur Smith, but they've been a good team consistently the last 3 or 4 years. So that's going to be a good challenge there in week 1.
With the matchup, though, for me, right? Yeah. What makes Tennessee so good is Derrick Henry, right? And obviously has good blocking. I am not worried about him against that front seven. Right. So if people are worried about their secondary, I get it. Right. But this isn't the matchup that I'm really worried about the secondary, because those dogs are going to take their number one out. And if they can, when
They
people
don't really
say,
have great receivers in Tennessee. So
right,
I think that's a fair point.
right. So, if I can limit Derrick Henry, you're not going to shut him down completely, and you don't have to, right? But if I can keep him bottled up and minimize the gashes, right? Keep it within that front seven, we have a really good opportunity to beat that team, because I know we're going to get pressure, and you also don't really have that great a receiver. So from a matchup perspective, I give this one to the Cardinals.
Yeah, a little bit biased there, but
I mean, it is biased, but it's actually well-founded bias,
yeah,
right?
it's well-found bias.
If I was saying they have the best receivers out there, we don't have the greatest secondary, but I'm still going Cardinals all the way, baby. Like, then call it bias. But that's a really sound football
I'm
argument.
just joking around.
And you know what? If I wasn't biased, I would be a jerk, because I know those guys. So I'm gonna cheer for them.
You have some other games you already brought up. Like, I thought it was interesting. I never really commented on this, but the whole Aaron Rodgers thing with the Broncos and Packers at the same time slot. But you have the Giants and the Saints playing those two teams. So I feel like it saves the NFL, because the Giants are they're the New York Giants. So that's obviously a huge market. And there's a lot of intrigue around that team this year to potentially take the next step. Saquon is back. And you have the Saints with Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. I'm assuming it will be Jameis Winston, but the new Saints. So like, that's ratings too. So they've kind of saved themselves there. Some of the games we haven't already covered, you have the Niners and the Lions, which I don't think super exciting outside of maybe Trey Lance, or I don't know if it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, but if it is Trey Lance, that's a pretty easy matchup to start with, if that's the way you want to go. You have the Eagles in Atlanta. You have the Vikings and Bengals. The one that stands out to me that I do really want to talk about is the Jets and the Panthers. And the reason this stands out to me is because this is Sam Darnold versus Sam Darnold's old team and Zach Wilson.
Yes. This game to me is exciting. And you are exactly right, because if nothing else, right? Like, these could be, and obviously the Jets were the second worst team in the league last year. But there is pride in this game, right? Like, for everybody who's a Jets fan, you're now tuning in to see, do we finally have the guy, right? Like, are we finally going to be good? And we have a new head coach, and we have new everybody, and we got our quarterback, and it's so exciting. We don't know if we should have let Sam Darnold go, but now we've got the new guy, and now he's in Carolina. And if I'm Sam Darnold, I am out for blood. Like, Sam Darnold, if you do not come in and absolutely dismantle a defense that you used to look at all of the time, then you're not the guy. Then you've officially become not the guy to me. And
I will say it's going to be a different defense, because
it is, and you're right, but you still do know all the guys. Like, I know that it's a different scheme, but from a pride perspective, and that is a really good point. And I don't want to not.
Yeah, I will say though, like, Sam Darnold, I believe, will be favored in this game. I haven't checked the spread, but Carolina is certainly looked at. They're at home. They're playing the second worst team last year, and Carolina has a lot of talent. So, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't do something in this game, then first of all, everybody's going to be like, oh, we wasted our time with that guy anyway, right? Like, and the New York market is not kind, right? Like, it is that you don't want to.
Zach Wilson has no pressure.
He does. He absolutely does.
He does? Yes. I don't know. Maybe. Yes, I don't think anyone's expecting him to really do well this year. But
look, there's a lot of pressure on that franchise, because there's a buzz about how much they've done, about new Salah, about new quarterback, about all of that. Now, do I think you have to come out and win the Super Bowl to do that? No. Do I think that's even a reasonable like hope? No. Now, Jets fans will probably say, we're finally going to do it. Slow your roll, Jets. It's going to take you a few years, right? You have new everything, and it's going to take you a while to really get that all together. But what you do need to see is that they are cohesive. You do need to see that they are a scrappy team that's going to go after things. I need to see some of that Saleh, like that guy on the sidelines, showing that he's changing the culture of New York Jets football so that people have something to buy into, something to hold on to, something to believe. Because if it's more of the same,
Yeah, I guess I get that point. I think there is a lot more pressure on Sam Darnold just to see because everybody, especially the believers, I'll call them, of Sam Darnold over the years have always said like, oh, he doesn't have the line, he doesn't have the receivers, he doesn't have this and that and this and that. And now he's in a situation where you would believe he has at least most of those things to make things happen. So if he doesn't do that from the get-go, I feel like the stock in the Carolina Panthers will drop a lot considering they're playing the Jets, who are not favored to do much this year. So,
no,
but that game is going to be really fun.
It's going to be fun and it's going to tell us a lot. And that's why I said, like, I don't know that it's pressure, but people need to see enough to believe, right? Because, you know, I mean, if you look at a Jets fan, like, it's like they're the Walking Dead. Like, I like the Jets. Like, I know. Like, they literally are like, I know, yeah. But I can't help it. And I'm like, so they need something to say, yes, okay, we're going in the right direction. And if they get that, if they crawl out of the basement, then they'll be happy, right? Like, if you're like 4 or 5 wins, you start to go, okay. And then maybe the next year you start to talk about them actually winning, like being competitive, hopefully. But they need to do something to give people a reason to believe, because it's been a dumpster fire there for too long.
I like how the NFL put Trevor Lawrence in his first game, try to give him a big boost by playing the Texans. I think that's kind of fun. That's kind of nice. I don't know.
Look, okay. It's a really interesting thing to do. It kind of feels like to me that we're now trying to have a new golden boy. And he hasn't even played it down yet. Like, we're setting him up to be that guy. It's also a very weird vibe with what's going on with Jacksonville right now. And like Tim Tebow.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that now?
I mean, we might have to. I think you teased it up nicely. I know that that's what you were doing. I know that's why you softly, you know.
What's your thoughts on Tim? What's the comeback? What's your thoughts? I need to know.
You softly sprinkled Jacksonville just to see if I would
bite on it. Let's go.
I'm biting on it. I think it's going to be really, really, really problematic to have Tim Tebow come back after like 6 years and Colin Kaepernick nowhere, right? Like, it's like 8, I think, or something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even remember him as a football player anymore. I remember him kneeling and praying or something, and then going and playing basketball. And you know, quite possibly, I sometimes with his fanaticism think of like the Da Vinci Code and the monk that is secretly wearing a hair shirt and torturing himself. Like, he's a lot too extreme for me. But the fact that he is getting an opportunity to come back and Colin Kaepernick hasn't, I don't think that plays well. And then you put like the Great White Hope matchup of Trevor Lawrence connecting with Tim Tebow. And probably
I don't even think Tebow's gonna make the team.
Well, but let's just play this out, because I do have a thought on Tebow. Okay. And then you're putting him against potentially Deshaun Watson with all of those question marks, or we don't know where he'll be, or I mean, and then you're talking about, you know, I mean, that team's terrible.
I don't think Watson will be playing. Like, I think it's going to be your boy Tyrod.
Right. But, and it might be Ty Taylor, which is fine as long as nobody punctures his lung.
Well, that could happen. Yeah.
It could happen. I mean, I don't think that anybody's had worse luck, but like the Texans could arguably be the worst team in the National Football League, right?
I think without Watson, they would be the best bet to have the first pick.
Right. Like,
and that's nothing against Mr. Taylor. You look at that team and it's like, I don't know.
Well, and you got the Stanford quarterback, which took draft picks, although, I've heard great things about him. So you're obviously planning that Watson's not going to be available, but I think it's a really interesting matchup. And maybe you said, maybe it's number one draft pick versus next year's number one draft pick. Maybe that was the logic.
Well, they won't have that pick yet, but
that's what
I just think they put Trevor Lawrence in a position where he can go 1-0 and start off hot. Jacksonville, the funny thing about them is they actually went 1-0 last year and they didn't win a game for the rest of the season,
which is distressing. But I do have a thought on Tebow. There were rumors that Urban Meyer had reached out to Alex Smith, and was thinking about bringing him in for that kind of, obviously veteran leadership. You could see Tebow as an old Taysom Hill, who is there to be the locker room guy, to kind of mentor Trevor, and be able to step in and actually, quarterback manage if necessary, but also because he's multiple, right? Like he could be a trick play guy. He could literally be the older, out of practice, new, old version of Taysom Hill for them.
I'll just say this though. I don't think Tebow's ever playing quarterback again. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, maybe like if you count like a wildcat snap as playing quarterback, then I guess.
But that's what I'm saying, like Taysom
throwing
Hill.
The football.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, and it could be a trick play too. You know, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have that guy out there because then you can get creative if you need to. But if you looked at, okay, well, we had the damn Denver Broncos last season. If he was on that roster, he definitely could have done better than that dude because you couldn't do much worse. So I also did hear that Urban wasn't even at those workouts and Tebow just came in and was like, let me work out and like kind of showed off that he could still do some of these things. But
maybe.
Look,
I'll give you the rest of my Tebow take after the break. How does that sound?
That sounds fair. Tebow take after the break. We'll be right back.
We're back here live on Twitch, the Juke. It's Mitch Milani, joined by Dr. Jen Welter. And we are here to continue to discuss the NFL schedule, of course, as well as my take on Tim Tebow. We left you with a little tease there. And I do got to say, this is my take, Jen. So I think they signed Tim Tebow because Urban Meyer's like, this is the only way I can get him to come back and be a coach for me. So I need to set him aside and say, Tim, you can't really play anymore. It's been too long. We'll try you out at tight end, but this is all a ploy to get Tim to become their motivational speaker and one of their coaches on their roster. And I am dead serious about this. I don't think I'm not even joking. I know it sounds kind of like a joke, but I honestly feel like because of what you said about Alex Smith, I ultimately feel like they wanted Alex Smith to be that mentor, AKA coach on the roster. And I feel like Tim Tebow is the same exact thing. And just having that guy in your building, Urban Meyer knows is a positive for your culture. So that is my take about Tim Tebow.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much, it's really what you've got to think about it. I don't know if Tim Tebow would be a guy that would want to be a coach. That takes a special shift of a player. I don't know if he's that selfless guy. And I say that because it's been, now I got to chase baseball and now I got to go back and play. And all of those are kind of I things. And I don't know him well enough to know if he could not be the man. Right. I remember Larry Foote, who was my mentor at Arizona. And he was like, we were talking about one time, and he was like, I had my time in the shine. I got to, win Super Bowls. I got to do all that stuff. And now, like, I'm good, like, kind of kicking back and building into these guys. And he's like, that's where I am now. And I got all of that out as a player. And he really did, and Bruce Arians took him directly from playing and an injury and made him a coach, which does not happen often. But he saw the guy that he was, and Footy was such a smart player that he knew he could make him that coach. I just don't know if that's where Tim Tebow's head and heart is, or if he wants to be the center of whatever attention there is to get. Does he go commentating? I could see him commentating before I could see him coaching. I don't know. But I think he also had to get this. I know, but I think he had to get this last, I can do it.
Yeah. Urban Meyer did say, he deserves a shot because he's a competitive maniac. That's the quote. And I think there is something there of what you're saying, where he only played like 3 years in the NFL. Like the year he left the Broncos, he took them to the playoffs. I know he wasn't the biggest reason for that, but he was their starting quarterback. And then he ends up leaving to the Jets, and Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos, and that whole story. And then that's kind of where his career kind of derailed, and then I think he tried out for New England, didn't make it. And he just couldn't find a spot because I think at that time, he was known, like he's this icon at that time. Like Tim Tebow, you would know better than me because you're a Florida person. You're from Florida. So you would know this better than me. But like he at that time was an icon of football, regardless of the NFL, college football, didn't matter. He was one of the most famous football players at that time in America. So for him to be a backup quarterback was just too chaotic for any football team to have on their roster because it was too big of a distraction. You're answering questions about your backup quarterback every week, right, even though he doesn't deserve to be the starting quarterback. So now maybe he feels like that will go away. It's not as big of a distraction. He just wants one more chance to try and find a role on a team. Maybe that he needs to be able to go through that, see if he can do it one last time. And if he can't, maybe that will be shutting the door on things.
Yeah, I mean, and you're dead on when it comes to too chaotic and asking questions about your backup quarterback. And he wouldn't transition back then. So what makes it so different now? Has he been humbled a little bit? Because, he wasn't willing to do it back then, and he would have been an asset as.
Why do you think that? Like, why do you think he wouldn't play like fullback or tight end or?
He wouldn't.
Like, why though?
He doesn't get to be the man. If you want to be the man, right? If that's your mentality, then it is a bit of humble pie to say all of a sudden, like, oh, well, you're going to be a backup, or you can transition to this other position. And why am I transitioning? Because it wasn't good enough, right? And you never see him. I mean, you'd never see him take a Taysom Hill type of role, right? And that's the best likeness I could give, because everybody knew he wasn't an NFL quarterback, right? He did some things well, and he could get people around him, but if you weren't willing to say, hey, whatever for the team, right? Like I'm telling you right now, when I played men's pro football, they said you're going to have to play running back. I was not a running back, but that's what I had to do. Also on Team USA, I remember my coach making me learn safety. Now, I was not there to play safety, but he said, if somebody went down, you will hustle it out. And I know I can put you there in an emergency. It was not like, you're going to do this, right? Or like, I'm transitioning you. It was like, I need you to be there just in case. And never had to go in a game. It was not a thing. But then I remember having that same conversation with my players of Team Australia. Like, I need you to know this too, because our roster's thin and you have to be multiple just in case. We have to have contingencies. And if he wasn't willing to do that, then is he the kind of guy who would lay out and do whatever it takes for his team to win? Or is it only that narrative when I am the face of the franchise?
Somebody that was a little upset about Tim Tebow returning was Des Bryant. Des Bryant said on Twitter, so Tebow hasn't played a NFL game in damn near a decade, and it's that simple. No hate, but you got to be kidding me. And I feel the frustration from Des Bryant because Des Bryant was a former multiple-time Pro Bowl, maybe even all-pro receiver, and he had to sit like 2 years just to get an opportunity to come back to the NFL and play. So from Des Bryant's perspective, there's a little bit more inner frustration, I think, coming inside that tweet. But with Tim Tebow, the thing that I just question is, like, at 33 years old, he's going to change positions completely. He's going to have to learn the tight end position. So that's probably one of the most difficult positions because you basically have to be a lineman and a receiver at the same time. You have to learn how to block. You have to learn how to catch, run routes, feel comfortable catching the ball over the middle of the field. Like, I don't exactly know if he's going to be playing a traditional tight end type of role, if the guy's going to be willing to play special teams in this comeback.
No
but like
way.
For Des Bryant, like, I totally get his frustration. How do you feel about that tweet?
I agree with Des. I absolutely agree with Des. First of all, Tim Tebow, let me see you run down the field on special teams. I guarantee you never had to do that, right? Like, most of us who knew we had something to prove, like, that's what we're doing, right? Like I'm in wherever you'll put me in, wherever I need to be to make a roster. Give me a job, give me a shot. But guess what? He wasn't willing to convert before. Hence some would argue, premature end to his career. In what way do you think that changes now? Do you think that he would lay out to protect Trevor
Who knows?
Lawrence?
Maybe he's a changed man.
Do you think he would literally run in front of a defensive lineman for Trevor Lawrence, somebody who has better hair than he does? I don't see that. Could I see him being a gadget guy? Yes. Could I see him being a literally like?
Here's the thing, Jen.
I don't
like the gadget thing because you're taking the ball out of the hands of your first overall pick. You're taking the ball out of your hands of your other first round pick running back. You're taking the ball out of your hands of James Robinson, who just ran for 1,000 yards. You're taking the ball out of the hands of Marvin Jones and DJ Chark and all these players that are better with the ball than Tim Tebow. Like, I just don't want Tim Tebow to have the ball.
That's right. But otherwise, what makes sense? Right?
Nothing.
If it's not a leadership role, and if it's not in some kind of a gadget role, he's not going to be like your dog tight end. He's at best your U tight end, right? He just is. And are you going to tell me that he's going to be that guy who would sacrifice? I mean, love him or hate him, Taysom Hill, you could tell he would run through a wall for his team. Right? Like,
Taysom Hill's a different kind of athlete, though. I know Tim Tebow used to be a special athlete, like, for quarterback, but like Taysom is a legitimate, like, stud athlete, like probably one of the best athletes in the NFL.
Right. But if Tim Tebow isn't that guy, then where does he ever make sense? Because he's not one of the other guys. And I certainly don't want to, like you just said, give him the ball over some of these other guys. Now, he can be an in case of emergency old dude, break glass to activate. He could do that. But where else is he adding value to your roster? Like, if I'm the special teams coach on that team right now, and I did hear it was very divided, even on the staff, in terms of whether or not people were behind this. But if I'm the special teams coach, I'm going to him and I'm going, where on special teams are you playing? Because otherwise you're taking someone else out of the equation by being on this roster. Now, maybe he is like a little pet to Urban Meyer. Maybe it's like a little lovey, little pet, little guy. But
aren't they neighbors?
I think so. Maybe
What do you
this
think
is how he gets him to take out the garbage.
What do you think of the overall larger discussion when it comes to college coaches giving their former college players opportunities? Like, we did interview Matt Leinart on the show, episodes ago, and he talked about how he never got that opportunity from Pete Carroll in Seattle. So,
right. And I think that's really tough, right? I mean, I really do. I think, some of them you have great relationships with, and some of those coaches are loyal, to the end, right? And you can see it. You can see them bring their guys back or find a way when they get there. And there is that network. Now, also, some of the teams give the coaches less leeway in terms of that decision making. So it really does depend on how much that is. Now, do I believe Pete Carroll has the juice in Seattle? Yeah. I mean, he better after all this time there, right? So if I'm an athlete and I thought I had a great relationship with this guy, I'm hurt if he doesn't give me that opportunity. I am. And I think that there is a lot to be said for those athletes that know your system, how they work. It's not as much of a ramp up, right? Like, I've seen what he can do, and you're putting a trusted, proven entity up against a maybe. And that's what it is, right? You've seen this guy work every day. You know that he's well prepared. You know that you can count on him. You know he's a dog, or he's not. And you're definitely not going to give him those opportunities if you already know, like, I can't do it with this guy. But if he knows your system and you have an opportunity to help somebody out, you're going to do it. That's why you see, coaching staffs change and then bring players with them, because they know, I mean, that's happened to Tyrod Taylor a few times, but because that guy can come in and what to expect. It's a proven entity.
Now, somebody that is a proven entity in the NFL is Aaron Rodgers, but the unproven entity is if he will be actually playing this year, especially for the Green Bay Packers. I think it's pretty much determined that if Aaron Rodgers were to be traded, it's going to be to the Broncos. But my question is going to be to you, Jen. Okay, the Broncos are there, but if you were an NFL team in control of every NFL team, all 32, and you were the general manager, how many of these teams should be in on Aaron Rodgers? Not that they will be, but should be.
I struggle with Aaron Rodgers right now. And I say that because you got your head coach fired. You now tried to get your GM fired. Now you're firing yourself from the team, and you're recruiting other athletes to go with you.
Devontae Adams, yep.
Right. I struggle with, you are obviously one of the very best quarterbacks to have ever played the game. You're prolific. I always really liked Aaron Rodgers. Now, I didn't know that much about him, but I was always like, ooh, Rodgers, right? Like, he's got that it factor. But now I'm kind of like, are you a great team guy? Right? And I get it. We want to win. We all want to win. But, like, what's going to make him happy? And is it now at this point starting to look like a Rodgers problem as opposed to a Packers problem? And so I'd have to think long and hard about that. And I really have to have conversations with him, because if that guy's going to come in and get me fired, I'm not in for him, right? Like, are you going to come in and try to get coaches fired, GMs fired, like, because you're in a bad mood today, your panties are in a bunch, and you've decided everybody should go but you. And now that you've already gotten that in some ways, now you're just going to take your ball and go home. You just may not play. Like, it's very much a, like, it's starting to wave red flags for me. I feel like he's like, I got to be like Tom Brady. Like, why won't they build a team around me? And maybe all my friends will come with me wherever I go. Right. Like, and so that gives me pause, because, and how long am I going to be able to win with him? How long does he want to play? Is he already in on Jeopardy, or, they've already said he makes
and at this point, he feels like a damaged player from just a mental standpoint in terms of buying into just about any coach, any system, any franchise. Like, I feel like it's almost his way or the highway. Like, Brady was willing to buy in with the Bucks, buy in with Jason Light, buy in with Bruce Arians, but
and take a
Aaron
pay cut.
Rodgers, like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers might have to have his way or the highway or else, right? Devontae Adams had a quote. You talked about, Rodgers might be bringing his guys with him. He said, "We've established a lot together. It would change a lot, man. It doesn't mean I'd be gone, but I definitely have to do some extra thinking if my guy wasn't there." Now, I don't think Devontae Adams would just sit out this season, but I do think if it were to come to next offseason and Aaron Rodgers were elsewhere, Devontae Adams might be going to the Green Bay Packer front office and saying, I want to get traded there or something, and maybe, pulling one of those maneuvers to get his way out. But I think just to answer that question that I posed you in terms of which team should actually be in on Aaron Rodgers.
And I do have a football answer. I can give you a football answer.
Okay, give me the football answer. And
I'm
then
giving
I'll give
you
you
a right
take.
now he's hurting my head answer. Right. And I do have now questions of what am I bringing in to
that's
my Aaron?
Part of it, right? Like, are you willing to accept, even though he's this great player, are you willing to accept what he brings?
Right. And it's going to have to be a team that wants to win now. Right. Mm-hmm. That is also not displacing somebody that they think they could build around. I think that's why you keep hearing Denver. I kind of feel like Raiders, because Chucky, that would now be the most ego-filled offense on the planet.
Here's the thing with the Raiders. Like, if I was Rodgers, I wouldn't want to go there. Like,
no,
I get
I
it from
the
Raiders perspective, but they're not in a place where they can win. Like, that's a total downgrade from the Packers situation.
Agreed. But if his ego has put him where he will not go back, right? And he said that now. It's like, I will not go back.
Reportedly, they've offered him like as much money as any other player in the league.
They have. And so now it's like, now he's really pushed all his chips in on the table because, okay, nothing's going to make him happy there. Well, so what is it that you want, right? Like, is it just now I'm going to go somewhere because you don't appreciate me, Green Bay, and I got to go? So what if, say, I could see the Broncos. That's one we've all heard, blah, blah, blah.
Like, just going division by division, like running through it. Like, I feel like if I was Miami, I would be in. If I was Miami, I don't know if they would be because Tua, but like personally, I would be. I think New England would still be in, even though they drafted Mac Jones. I think they still could be in, actually. Buffalo would not be in. And then you have the Jets, who just drafted a guy second overall. So they won't be in. AFC North, they're kind of stuck. The Steelers with Ben for one more year. And you wouldn't really want to trade him in the last year. That'd just be weird. Like, I don't know. The Ravens wouldn't be in with Lamar. The Browns, maybe, like, if I know that they like Baker.
They like Baker.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Like,
look,
I think the Browns would be a team for next year that might do it. If Baker doesn't get it done this year, maybe next year.
I don't think you're going to displace him. I think that the upside of having a guy like that, remember, he's cheap, and he has talent, and they've seen progress. If I'm the Browns, I'm not doing it, especially not with what I've built. I'm not.
The Bengals aren't doing it. Joe Burrow. The Colts just got Wentz. I mean, would they think about it? Because they're not really tied to him.
I mean, if they could swing it.
They've got plenty of money, so they could.
I
mean, but they haven't really been known to be aggressive.
Right. And I don't know that isn't that the ankle knee biting dude?
That's Detroit.
No, that's Detroit. Okay. Yeah. He's in every like blue and white team in the middle of the country that I don't really think about now. But like literally that's what it is. They're like, but
the Titans are comfortable with Tannehill. The Texans, Tyrod, and I don't know what's going on with Watson, but Rodgers would not want to go to let's be honest there. Jacksonville, no. Obviously, the Chiefs, no. You brought up the Raiders, the Chargers, no. We brought up the Broncos, the Cowboys, no. The Eagles, yes, I think. But
Eagles potentially. So right now, I think the Raiders. I don't know that he would want to go there, but they would. Broncos could see Eagles.
I could see Colts. I could see Dolphins.
I wonder if the Dolphins would do it.
I think they should think about it.
I mean, that would be a good landing spot actually for him. If you put Rodgers in with that team, it gets
like, I could see him buying into that.
Yeah, it gets scary pretty quickly, especially if he brought his boy with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about San Francisco?
That's the thing. Like, I guess they were in on Rodgers, like, during the draft. They asked about him, but they did just draft Trey Lance, like, with the 3rd overall, right?
Right, but I do think they think Trey Lance, there's been talk that they think Trey Lance might be a year 2 project and that they were okay with that. So if you think Trey Lance is the future and you do have if you plug and play Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah, they're Super Bowl favorite.
Right. Like, they're stupid good overnight. And if he has any Brady effect, right? Like pulling other talented people with him, that's another destination team. That's going to be, to me, kind of and it's also the test, right? To see if he's a jerk to be around, right? Like, do other people want to go there or that?
I know they just got Sam Darnold, but I wouldn't rule out Carolina either.
And Carolina would be really good with him. What about
the
Washington football team?
Yeah, Washington too.
It's
just hard at this point in the year because all these teams have committed to quarterbacks for this season. So it's almost like a next year sort of thing that we're talking about.
Right. And he has said he would sit out if he needed to. And maybe that's what he's thinking. But I think he's too old to sit out a year. Not that he's old, right? But like, I don't know that it's smart for him to sit out a year after an MVP caliber season, right? Like, you're hot right now. You're not going to be that hot for that long. If you're going to take your ball and go home or go to another team, you do it now. And because you've already pushed your chips into the table, and it does have to be a place and a space where, like, we know we can devastate right now if we do this, right? Like, we're going to be the dogs. We're going to be the big boys on the block when we do this. And, Denver's almost too easy to me.
It's the only team that makes sense. Like, really.
Like, it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But if he goes San Francisco or Washington football team, like, would Aaron Rodgers, and this would probably tell me the most about him, would he take less money to go to one of those teams and win?
I think the Niners, he would.
I mean, you want to win now, right? Like, if you want to really win now, that Niners team, without
especially
Jimmy G,
with the coach and that system that they have.
I mean, I could see Aaron Rodgers and Shanahan, like, literally being like, oh my God.
And Kittle, I mean,
that's if I'm Rodgers, that's the team where I said, yeah, I'm going there. It's not about money. It's about rings. Put it on my finger. Let's go get this. And
you could carry the legacy of Joe Montana and Steve Young.
I mean,
he's from the Bay Area.
Yeah. That I would be here for that. I might actually pull for San Francisco to win some if he does that, because that becomes a scary, scary, scary good franchise real fast.
All right. Jen's going to let you know after the break her journey on Twitch and share some of her favorite stories. All right. It's it for me on the Juke this week, but I'll see you back here next week.
Mitch, miss you already. I won't know what to do without you. Who else? I mean, we have a good hair day today.
Looking good.
We're all hair team today. What's up, y'all? We are back. You've got just me now. Mitch gave me the juke. He had to go. He's highly in-demand man. But so we have a great question here from Coach Laxer. How much improved will the Cowboys be from last year with all the draft picks? Please exclude the Bucs game. Well, we talked about the Bucs game earlier, and as I said, what the Buck? Why would you put Dak into that situation on the first game back? I don't want Dak on his back all day, right? Like TBD is going to have his way with that one. And I would like to see a little bit more of Dak not being tortured all day, because that would give us a better picture of what they're going to look like. Thankfully, their O-line is much improved. The biggest improvement that I'm going to look for really is on the defensive side of the ball, to be certain, because as you know, I'm a defensive girl, and I could not watch their games last year without making the point that there is no D in Dallas, and it is painful to watch. So they became the Alice Cowboys because it was just painful to watch, and there was no D. It was literally like, we were like, anybody, whatever you want to do, you want to go score? Cool, go score. So I'm really interested to see what, Van Der Esch, what Jalen Smith and what Micah Parsons can look like all together, because now you have a dynamic three that's going to really elevate your sideline to sideline hustle. Parsons can be multiple. We've talked to LeVar Arrington, and he is a big fan of his. So we'll know a lot. And obviously the remake of the defense will be coaching, right? And then the players that come in. So let's look for them to be multiple. Let's look for them to be scrappy. Let's look for them to be disguising things with their linebacker play, and kind of daring teams to go there. They're going to have to come out big. They're going to have to come out strong, and they're going to have to be a little dominant, because if they're not, then it's going to sink back into, oh no, we suck again. Like the water boy is gone. And so let's make sure that we come out and we really show that there is actually some fire in this defense. And also with a renewed Dak Prescott, you won't have the defense in as bad a situations as often, because the offense will actually be able to move the football. And hopefully, we'll actually get a Zeke running game back, which y'all know how I feel about Zeke. We should have played Dak before we played Zeke. Zeke is a little bit inconsistent for me, but with a reinvigorated O-line, hopefully Zeke is actually back to the form that made them want to pay him in the first place. And then you have the opportunity to use a little bit more clock management and actually be able to work that. And again, take some of the weight off of your defense, which clearly they were unable to carry last year. Okay. Parson Smith to the promised land. Getting back to Tim, I would rather have a young man with fire and eye of tiger versus Tim, who would be more of a distraction in the dressing room and with the media. But and I'm going to say, I don't know Tim Tebow personally, so this is only speculation, but the fact that he was unwilling to convert positions earlier in his career in what they thought could extend his career and now is coming back means one of two things. Either he has had a change of attitude and will be that guy, or he just really is all about himself and he's hanging on. So can he be a veteran in the locker room? Can he be a positive influence on Trevor Lawrence? Can he be somebody who would be a third depth backup, which was literally, like I said, in case of emergency, break glass to activate? I could be okay with that. Now, I don't know him well enough to know if he could do that, but signs to me point to maybe not so much, right? If you're not able to be selfless, then I can't use you as a guy who's influencing my franchise quarterback. And I also can't trust you as a tight end because I do need you to block. And so, Tim Tebow, will you block? Tim Tebow, would you contribute on special teams? Or is this just a way to say, look at me, you thought I was down and I'm not, and it's going to be all my narrative all day. And I think we'll see a real, a lot about him in what his off season is like. Is it all about him or is it all about team, and what the narratives he allows to happen are? If it's me, Tim Tebow, you got a lot of work to do. If it's me, Tim Tebow, put your head down, become a great tight end, get on every special team and show that you are selfless. And then maybe you can contribute. Otherwise, there are tons of guys who would essentially run in front of a Mack truck. Oh, wait, they do. That's what a tight end has to do when he's blocking a defensive lineman. There are plenty of guys who would give up everything for this shot. So if you're going to take that roster spot, you better be that guy. And you better be that guy 100% of the time. And you better put team first. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not all in on Tebow. I'm not yet buying what they're selling. My initial thought was actually, Tebow, no. But we'll see, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe he also has some blackmail on Urban Meyer since they're neighbors. I don't know what it is. All right, let's see. Mayor of Mars. Okay, I'm in love with this name already. Mayor of Mars. You must love my hair color then. Clearly we are kindred spirits. Let's see. How's it going, Dr. Jen? What's the craziest story you can tell from a practice? Craziest story from a practice. Well, I can tell you one from one of my practices, which was pretty awesome. So we were doing tryouts for new players back in the Dallas Diamonds days, and this was in the dynasty, right? The Dallas Diamonds were that team, right? 4 Super Bowls in 5 years. And if you were a super vet and a starter, which I was, we let everyone know what it meant to be a diamond. There was a standard of excellence. And yet we would be there for all of the other girls. We were very everybody wanted to be a diamond, but it meant you had to be a diamond, right? This isn't a lump of coal. You're a diamond, act as if. And we were at tryouts and we were supposed to be there just kind of helping, but not competing. And our coach all of a sudden decides vets are going to run the 40. Excuse me, what? I did not prepare to run the 40 today. I did not wear the right stuff to run the 40 today. I'm helping out. I'm not warmed up. And you want me to just all of a sudden run the 40. So really bad idea. And why? And it made no sense. I was you got to run the 40. And I'm you don't know how fast I am yet? I don't get beat on a football field. Dude, what are you doing? And he's everybody's got to run the 40. And I said, okay. Rookie, come here. Little receiver, I didn't know her name. She was trying out, but she happened to be near me. Her problem. Get on my back. And she's huh? And one of the other vets goes, yeah, you better do it. If Welt said it, you better do it. And so I put the rookie on my back, and I actually ran the 40 time with the rookie on my back. Quite sure might have been one of the slowest 40 times ever recorded in the history of football. But I'll tell you what, when you run the 40 with the receiver on your back, they kind of know what type of person you are. It doesn't become about the 40 time at that point, but it was quite a special moment. So that was kind of a crazy, funny moment, and one that would tell you probably a whole lot about my personality and how I personally handled adversity and things like that. Let's think. Hope that was a good one for you, Mayor of Mars. And that's good. Mess with Welt and you get the Welt. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, mess with me and it's going to be interesting. You don't know what you're going to get, right? I was a heart forward person. I would absolutely lay out, do anything I could for my teammates. I was the blocker that you wanted on your side. In fact, Alberta Fitcher Bryson was also one of the best to ever play the game. So it was Berta 2-4 and me. And we used to call each other the 1-2 punch. You hit her, I'll hit her, we'll both hit her, kind of like the Bad Girls era. And so Berta was a punt returner. And I was always going to be that last block. Now, my job was to come off the edge, ensure there was a kick, there were no trick plays, keep everything contained. But unofficially, or officially because we were smart, Berta was always going to return opposite the edge that I was coming off of, because we had an unwritten rule that if she got there and she needed one more block, I would get there. It wasn't my official job. My official job was really making sure that ball was contained, making that tackle if they tried to, run a trick play, which, happens. But if she got there and there was one person to beat, I had her back. And it was something I took a lot of pride in. I loved special teams. I loved blocking for someone else to score. And I'm telling you what, Berta had it. She was down the left sidelines. She's there and one girl to beat. And I came in, and it was that, ooh, block. The whole stadium lights up. They're like, yeah, they're going crazy over the block, mind you. And they're all looking at it. Berta goes free. She runs for another 20 yards, scores. She's in the end zone. And Berta was hilarious. Like, her end zone dance was always like just the grind. She would just grind on it. And she said, well, here I am in the end zone. And that person saw it because everybody was still looking at girl on the ground from your block. And she said, in that moment, I was like, okay, blocking's pretty dope, and I'm going to learn how to do that. And she became a great blocker as well. But that was one of the things that, it was a part of the player I always wanted to be. If there was work, I was going to find work, right? And finding work meant one more block. It meant one more tackle. It meant being there for cleanup, even if the other person made the tackle, that just in case they got out, that I was there. And I used to tell people, I was like, you better watch out. I'm going to steal a half a sack. I'm going to steal a half a tackle, meaning I'm never going to let you be on that island by yourself if I physically have the ability to get there. And I was a monster in shape back then. Like, people think I'm fit now, but like relative to them, like, I was running gyms and I was teaching classes every day, and I was going to give you everything on the field. So many times, that play I wasn't supposed to make was actually the one that I did. And funny enough, when Berta decided that she now liked to block, there were times when we would play, on both sides of the ball, especially early in women's football, when the numbers weren't as big. You would have an offensive role and a defensive role. You might be a starter on defense, but I was a backup at running back. And there was one time when on offense, they put in both Berta and I was blocking for Berta, and she got the ball and I blocked for her. And I'm telling you, I was like clearing people out of the way. And we go to walk back, and, she had a big run. It was a great run. But what the funniest part was, and I don't even remember the play, is it was like carnage on the field. It was like you see all these people on the battlefield, like, right? Like they're all still on the ground. And Berta just kind of looks, and she's like stepping over people. And she's like, what happened to y'all? And I was like, oh, yeah, see, what happened? What are y'all doing down there? And our quarterback at the time was Karen Seamers, and we used to call her Preach because she was actually a preacher. So she could throw a Hail Mary and say a Hail Mary, I guess, was what you would say. And Berta and I get back to the huddle, and Preach goes, y'all can't say that. We don't talk smack on offense. We're nice. And we said, yeah, that's why we play defense, right? Like, we don't actually do this. And yet that was just kind of the dynamic of how we were for years in the game. Let's see, is there anything else? You're the one you want on your team, fear playing against you. Hopefully, right? That's what you always want. That's what I always wanted to be. I wanted to be a nightmare to play against, and yet the first person that you would want on your team. Because of the teammate that you were. You didn't have to like me as a person, but you know what? I'm going to give you everything I've got, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm going to sell out to block for you. And I actually started playing offense because we had the best running back in the league. I think that if you looked at all of the tape of all of women's football, there are some players that are just timeless. And she could step on that field today and still dominate. Her name was Jessica Springer. Jessica Springer was a monster. If you look her up, she's now doing powerlifting. You find her on Instagram. It's like Springer 46, probably. That was her last name and football number. And she's like breaking all these records in powerlifting. And it's not surprising because at one time, Jessica Springer ran a 4.840 at 220 pounds. She would run through people and past them. She looked for contact. But I was first to the Dallas Diamonds and I was looking and I was like, she needs one block. She just needs one block on so many of these plays and she would score. And yet the way our team built at that point was like our really fast people were like true kind of wide receivers. They were really fast and could get in front of her, but they weren't great blockers. And then we had some great blockers, but they weren't quite fast enough to get in front of Springer. And I remember going to our coach and I'm like, Coach, I want to play offense. And he's like, Welter, you don't even like offense. Why would you want to play offense? And I was like, actually, let me rephrase that. You don't have to give me the ball. Like, I don't really want to run the ball. You don't have to throw me the ball. I want to come onto offense to block for her. If I could take one person out of her way, she'll be in the end zone like every time. So I looked at it that I was like playing defense for offense. And it was funny because they didn't let me practice there. So I had no practice and I only had it on like a playbook. And we get into Houston. And at that time, Houston was the dominant team. The Houston Energy in the early days of the WPFL, they were the monsters. They had Stacey Agee, who was clocked as the fastest woman in football. I mean, they were lights out. And they played at Old Rice Stadium, which meant it had the old AstroTurf, which was essentially like concrete with grass on top. And Houston had never lost at their home field. Had never happened. And so going in there, it was like larger than life, right? It was like huge. And I was new to the Dallas Diamonds. The Dallas Diamonds were established in 2002. I was going into my third season. My fourth season, but it was my first season with them in 2004. So it was my first game at Houston. It's like the biggest game. They had a drum line. I remember it. It was so tight. It was like, and we clearly went over the drum line because they were playing when we were on defense. I don't think they know that offense is like quiet. So we literally say that we went over their drum line. And they're like, well, we need you for offense. And I remember being like, in theory, I know how to do this, right? It's on paper, but I've never actually had to do this. And it was bunch left formation. I was on the inside of the bunch and I had never actually lined up on the field in this formation. And so I line up and then I realized like, I'm not in the right position. So of course I go to move because on defense we can move. So there you go. False start. No, this is not working out how I thought it would in my head, right? So then they line up, Xerox, same play. It was a toss crack. I was the inside of the bunch. It was my job to crack the corner, meaning if she came in, keep her in. If she went out to the sidelines, I'm pushing her all the way out. And I took that girl and I might as well have sat her on the bench. You talk about, I took her and I drove her clear to oblivion and Springer scored. And from that moment on, it was like, ooh, we've got something. I mean, we scored, everybody went crazy. It was like, ah. And I was like, y'all still mad about that false start? And they were like, nope, you had to get that out of your system. And I was like, right. So we drove and ended up, we went for even further because I got them a penalty. But from that moment on, it was funny because Spring, who was really quiet, a beast on the field, but just a kind of gentle giant human as a person, although I didn't yet know that, would just go to our coach and she'd be like, Coach, can I have Welter now? I'd like to score. And I remember the coach would be like, Springer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm still like a rookie on that team. So I didn't have nearly the swag that I do now, or the attitude. And, I'd be like, yeah, coach, why you make me learn all these plays? I only need one. But it was that lockdown, and she knew that the block was always going to be there. So that was something I took a lot of pride on, both on offense and on special teams, was if it's just one block, I can always find one. And I'm always going to find one more. If I'm out there, I'm looking for work. I'm not stopping until the ball's in the end zone or the whistle blows. But if there's work to do, I'm going to find it. And that's actually what I look for in players. Now, when I scout them, is what are you doing when the ball's away from you? What are you doing when you're on special teams? What are you doing if it's not your job, right? Everybody can check the box of the highlight reels or your JOB, but what are you doing when it's not about you? Selfish running back, you can tell all day when they're not getting the ball. And it's a tell us defense. It's like, meh. Receivers, same things. They come off the ball. They're kind of like, no, should look the same. And if you can't be the same every time, then I'm going to favor somebody, all things being equal, that has that heart. And we've heard that from a lot of players. LeVar Arrington talked about that. Jonathan Casillas talked about that. Tony Richardson talked about that. These iconic players, Vernon Turner talked about it, right? These iconic players who weren't necessarily the biggest, fastest, strongest all times. Maybe they were overlooked at some point, but they all found work. They were like, you know what? I'm going to find a way that you want me on this football field. And that will make or break a team. If you get a bunch of those people, then you have, we say 11 hats to the football. That means everybody running the ball on every play. And that's where you start working with some really special sauce as a team. And you're going to be a problem, right? If you can do that, you're going to be a problem. And other teams are going to have problems dealing with you. All right, let's see. Coach, you asked my 3 top favorite linebackers. I don't like to name favorites. I'm sorry. I think it's part of being a coach. It feels like a conflict to me, because I do coach them. And having had guys in my locker room, I don't know that it's fair to, to list favorites. Plus, in terms of linebackers too, there's so many differences in what are you asking them to do and why are they your favorite, right? I loved Sean Lee. He was a great linebacker, really upset to see him leave, but I always kind of rooted for him in his career also because I met him at a Play 60 camp and we were the two working with the kids and he was just like I was. He was running full speed. He was like so excited. He was having fun with the kids. He was 1000% in the moment. And I had like a fall in love with the player crush there. I don't want anybody to get that twisted. So I hope it didn't come out funny, but like now this person, I know that we think about the game the same way. And it was his like childlike enthusiasm for the game that just made it special. And he also wasn't a jerk to me because back then females in football wasn't a thing. But then, I have guys that I have been around that I just adore how they play. You can argue also whether it's D-line or not. But, I like the dogs, right? Give me your Marcus Golden. Give me your Chanman Jones. Give me those guys with a motor and a chip on their shoulder and some attitude. Give me Deion Buchanan, who came down from safety and we converted into a linebacker. Give me Kevin Minter, who is your rock of your defense. He's not your rah-rah guy. He is going to make plays. Give me a guy like Parsons, who has a motor that doesn't stop. Give me a LeVar Arrington, who I know I can throw into a lot of things, and he's always going to be sidelines to sidelines, and he's always going to hustle. Countless guys like that I can think of. I like Perryman, who was with the Chargers. I think now is with Carolina. Love the way he plays, but also again, the guy that he is. And once you've been in it, it's really hard to separate that, right? It's really hard to know guys and not have that be a part of him. Also, Luke Kuechly was a heck of a linebacker. And I had a little bit of a sense of pride because he went to Boston College and I went to Boston College, and, there weren't that many guys that came out of Boston College. So I also looked for him to like him. If you want to go way back, I used to love Teddy Bruschi. And one of my favorite linebackers to ever watch play was Mike Vrabel. And I'll tell you a funny story because we're getting to the top of the stream, but I can end with this because this is actually some personal insight. I was maybe in my first or second year playing, and I got invited to Patriots Family Day by a player named Kenyatta Jones. He was an O lineman. Unfortunately, he left the world way too early. He passed away. But Yatta was a good dude, full of life, all this gold in his mouth. He was from Florida. I was from Florida. We met at a charity event, and he was like, I don't have any family here. You kind of like family, you're from Florida too. Why don't you come to Family Day with me, at the Patriots? That'd be cool for you, wouldn't it? And I was like, dying. Yes. Amazing. And he's like, I'll just tell them all you're my cousin. Anybody says you're light skinned, I'll whoop them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had never been to an NFL practice, family, or any of that stuff. I'd never had the opportunity to be that close to the game. And here I am, I'm walking down the hallway, and Vrabel was one of my favorite players at that time. And he's running the other way, and he's chasing these two little twins. And I kind of feel like I sidestepped one and I maybe stepped over the other or was about to, and he's coming to scoop them up and almost tackled me. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, that's okay. Now I know why you're such a good tackler. And he laughed and he was like, oh man, it's the truth. You got to get low for these little guys too. And at the same Family Day, the one and only time I have ever met Tom Brady. So people ask me about him all the time. I had met him once, and it was at that Family Day. And I'll never forget it because he was in the buffet line before I was. And he would and this, I still have a great impression of him from this to this day, because here he is in the buffet line, and he's he would scoop something for himself, and then he'd be like, here, do you want some? And I'm like, I don't even know what was on my plate, but I was sure not saying no to Tom Brady. So I end up with probably this mound of food that who knows if I could have even eaten, because I was so nervous that I was there that I probably didn't eat any of it. But I just remember he was so nice to be like, here, do you want some? And he served me food in the buffet line. And so that is my one Tom Brady story and my tackling Mike Vrabel story. So I hope that was helpful on the linebackers. I know it was a little bit vague, but there's so many I like for so many reasons. And especially if you know them, it changes it. And oh, by the way, I have to say Jonathan Casillas, because he's amazing. And he came on here the other day. And if you missed it, you should definitely watch that interview as well. We are at our time for today. I hope you enjoyed, as I like to say, the Juke and Jokes with Jen and Mitch today. And I hope you will, follow us, subscribe to the channel, definitely come and hang out. And please bring questions and bring your friends and let us know what you want to talk about. And what other things that, you think we should do on the Juke or on the channel, because we're new to this Twitch world and always up to make this the best, the place that you want to go to talk ball and have a ball. So thank you all for being here with us. We so appreciate you. Again, follow us at the Juke Pod. Follow me, jwelter47 on Twitter and Welter47 on Instagram, and definitely subscribe to our channel, join in, and make sure that you're up on the notifications so you know when we go live. All right, we're out, and we will see you on the Juke next week.